Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Silverman. I'm the head of the point of sales division for MPI.
And I'm Larry Cassidy. I'm point of sales specialist at MPI.
Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to view our presentation, P.O.S, Proven Organizational Success. What we're going to expect is we're going to talk about sources of revenue, managing your prime costs, sources of prime costs, causes and solutions to shrinkage, and how to use technology to manage your prime costs, reduce your shrinkage, and increase your overall revenue. I'm going to let Larry take it over from here.
Okay, so what you see here is a pie chart depicting the full 100% revenue of a restaurant, and we have it broken down into those different costs. And you see on the next slide here, here's our pie chart, and what is in this pie chart? So we have your prime costs. These are going to be your labor and your food and liquor costs. Things like your inventory and what you pay your employees, including benefits and tax. As you can see there, that takes up the largest chunk of your restaurant's revenue. Then we have our non-prime costs. So your occupancy cost, your rent, your electricity, water, things like that. Those numbers are going to traditionally stay the same throughout the year. And then you also have your operating costs. So kitchen equipment. I know people may be all too familiar with the weekend after hours call to your refrigeration guy for him to come out to fix your walk-in compressor. Things, necessary evils in the restaurant business. And then what we have left is the smallest piece of the pie, your profit. Typically speaking, studies have shown those are from anywhere from 6 to 10%. And these numbers can change based off of what the style of your restaurant is, whether it be a quick service or a fine dining restaurant may have higher food costs or labor costs, depending on how many of those items they're hand making in their kitchen. And how can we improve the profit? Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to bring home a little bit more money, and how do we get there? So managing your prime costs are the #1 key. Prime costs are the most controllable costs in a restaurant, and knowing what contributes to these costs and implementing procedures to help better identify these costs will make a restaurant more profitable. So we have our sources of prime costs. So knowing what your liquor and food costs are, equation here would be your beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory, and all of that divided by your sales. That can be done over a time period, whether it be a day, a week, or a month. What you see here is a recipe cost index. So we just chose pub burger on a menu item, and what we've done here is we've broken down each one of those ingredients. This should be done for most of all of your menu items, things like drinks, making sure your bartenders are pouring, correct pours, 1.5 ounces, and they're not over pouring and costing you as a restaurant owner money. And then also we have here, knowing this, you can see your food costs down here, 29.5 on that menu item alone. What we would want to do here is using this information to position your menu items so that your most high profit margin items are positioned correctly and you're selling more of those. Other sources of prime costs are your labor costs. So making sure you're staffing appropriately on busy weekends. Nobody likes going to a restaurant and not being able to get a drink because they're understaffed. So finding that balance, using historical data to make sure that you have enough staff on hand and making sure that percentage is right around that 35%, so everybody's happy. Things like employee meals and waste can also affect your bottom line. So if you're giving your employees free meals every shift, making sure they're at least bringing those into your point of sale system so you can effectively track how that affects your food costs. And even things like staff drinks at the end of the night, they may get their shift drink, making sure that is at least rang into the system so you know exactly how much that beer is costing you. And lastly, we have operational procedures. So we're going to want to put in place things to help you keep track of your food and liquor costs. Weekly inventory counts. Now, a good point of sale system is going to have this feature included in there. So if you set it up correctly, with your recipe costs in there and your percentages, it can automate this for you, so that way you have a quick snapshot in a dashboard of being able to know exactly what those food costs are. And also scheduling your employees correctly, we spoke about that earlier. Just putting those procedures in place so that you really are getting the best bang for your buck, and at the end of the day, taking home more profit. Without further ado, I'll pass it off to Steve here.
Thank you. So the time has come to talk about an uncomfortable topic. Shrinkage. It is a necessary evil, and it happens in every one of our businesses. I'd like to explore that a little further. So, as you all know, shrinkage is the difference between your expected inventory and your actual inventory. We're going to go through the common causes and how we can reduce our shrinkage throughout this presentation. All right. Taking a look at the chart on the right, we can see some averages for sources and frequency of shrinkage. You can see that approximately 75% of all shrinkage is due to theft in retail, with external shrinkage occurring at a slightly higher percentage than internal, vice versa for restaurants. So in addition to that, we can see we have administrative and paperwork errors, vendor fraud, and then of course our mystery and unknowns. All right. I'd like to blow this up a little bit so you can actually read the information. I don't know about y'all, but I couldn't see it. What we're going to do is talk about some of the most common types of shrinkage. We're going to talk about theft, internal and external. Internal theft is typically due to inconsistencies in procedures, in receiving, fulfilling, recording inventory, things of that nature. Inconsistent order entry, your inventory management procedures may not be tight enough, and of course, security measurements such as CCTVs, burglar alarms, monitoring of cash drawers, and things of that nature. With external theft, although it's been trending downwards for the past 3 years, it still occurs in every business. Usually due to blind spots, understaffing, and frankly, having your products improperly placed in your business. All right. Vendor fraud actually makes for a very small percentage, but it can be very costly when it does occur. Vendor fraud is going to occur with inconsistencies with received versus ordered products, as well as invoicing errors and incorrect charges for your invoices. Employee error is typically about training. Inadequate training leads to incorrect entry, unrecorded sales, procedural mistakes, all of which can make up for a significant loss in your restaurant. All right. We're going to quickly go through damage, waste, breakage, and spoilage. Accidents are going to happen. Waste with overproduction, I have a little anecdote I'd like to talk about. Typically with waste, it's all about not wasting your food. I have a great example from when I worked a little known holiday known as Mother's Day. Perhaps you have heard of it. It's very popular in the industry. And we opened 12 bottles of wine a few years ago in advance based on our historical sales. And we sold 3.5 bottles of wine that evening. And those bottles ended up getting wasted. You can take small measurements such as opening your bottles of wine or preparing your food in advance and not cooking it until it's sold. All right. Spoilage, items left on the shelf too long, staff didn't know it was going bad, can be due to ignorance or to inconsistencies in your procedures. All right, here's a quick chart that's just going to summarize different types of operational failures and where it occurs as far as the different types of shrinkage, with opportunity, of course, being the main part for all of your theft, and then your non-malicious, your spoilage damage, and your errors. So what are we going to do to reduce our exposure? With internal theft, we can do a lot. Consistent inventory management, make sure you are consistently inventorying, your procedures are the same, and you're doing it frequently enough so that there's no opportunity for people to take advantage of a lack of oversight. Definitely cut out your written procedures if possible. If you have handwritten procedures, you should be using a point of sale system to enter everything that goes through the system and reducing the possibility again for theft to occur. Entering all your products into the P.O.S. system before fulfilling the order talks a lot about what Larry was saying. When it comes to staff meals as well, everything should be put through your P.O.S. so that you know what's going in and what's coming out. And then I have an interesting suggestion is involving your employees. Studies have shown if you empower your employees to help reduce your annual shrinkage, perhaps you can provide a reward to them at the end, a party, financial reward, or it just feels good when you reduce your shrinkage annually. That has shown up to a 5% reduction in overall shrinkage for some businesses. External theft is all about reducing the opportunity, placing your products well, identifying shoplifting traits, training your staff to identify shoplifters, And of course, deterrents such as signage, cameras, physical presence. All right. Vendor fraud is all about due diligence. I highly recommend that the person who receives your inventory and records that is separate from the person who runs your accounting, and as an administrator, someone is spot checking both sides of that. You'll also want to perform periodic audits just to make sure everything is kosher. With your employee error, it's training. Train them how to use the POS system, enter orders correctly, standardize your procedures, and then again, potentially reward your employees for reducing shrinkage. Breakage. Accidents are going to happen, things are going to break. But there are things that you can do, just don't set your team up for failure. Keep your lanes open and make sure if you do have breakable equipment or inventory, it's in easy to reach places and people aren't going to be bumping into it. With waste, a lot of it is how we handle our inventory incoming and outgoing. So train your employees to properly store your inventory and handle it as well. Consider overproduction, as we talked about. If you do overproduce your items, you can donate for tax credits in some places, some locales. You can repurpose the ingredients often, and you can even offer it as a bonus to your staff at the end of the day. Lastly, we'll talk about spoilage. Hopefully everyone is familiar with FIFO, first in, first out. It is the easiest way, in my opinion, to prevent spoilage. Make sure your oldest items are being used first. And again, a good point of sale system will have use first alerts, so you know what is about to spoil, so that you can make sure to push those items in that period of time before it goes bad. I'm going to let Larry take it over from here and talk all about how technology can be used to increase your profits.
Sure. So as everybody knows, technology is here to stay. You can either get with it or stay behind. So what I want to talk about here is how we can use technology from your point of sale systems to increase your profits. 6% of $110,000 is a lot more than 6% of $100,000. So what can we do to increase that overall revenue so you as a restaurant owner are taking home more profit at the end of the day? So first thing I'm going to talk about are custom loyalty apps. Has anybody ever used the Wawa or Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, or at least familiar with their loyalty apps? So what that is, it's not just for the big franchises anymore. They can be used for smaller restaurants as well. Many point of sale systems are now integrating with custom loyalty apps. It'll be a branded app to your restaurant that you can download in the Apple Store or the Google Store. So they're downloading that app, they're seeing your logo. You can also offer loyalty programs, so customers earn loyalty points. You can then have them, basically the point here is to generate repeat business from your customers. They can pre-order from the app and it'll cut down on their wait in your restaurant, so increasing that turnover and generating more revenue. And it can also increase your ticket size on your using the app. For using the top-down feature, if somebody were to purchase $50 worth of points, that can really cut down on your credit card processing costs as well by increasing your average ticket size.
And reducing your number of transactions.
Something to help that bottom line. We also have self-service kiosks. These are going to be used to increase turnover. So if anybody's familiar with Panera, they've recently been rolling these out at all their locations. Come in, they do not have to take an order from one of your staff members. They can just bring it in, pay for it right there, and then pick their food up at the end. It will help cut down on your labor costs. Instead of paying as many people to take orders, they can better service your restaurant other places by bussing tables and engaging with customers, making that customer experience better so people enjoy being at your restaurants. And using the quick ad features similar to McDonald's Supersize, you can put quick add-ons at the checkout so people might purchase, that medium basket of fries with their sandwich. And then we also have digital menu boards. Basically, you can entice your customers with cool pictures and videos, and you can market to your customers. We talked about earlier those high profit margin items. If you have a low food cost for an item, instead of positioning it, hiding it, not letting people know about it, you can market that menu item on this bright digital signage, and more people would buy it, and which will in turn help your food costs.